皆さんもおはようございます。こんにちは。こんばんは。Today's video is going to be mostly in English, and we're going to be going over my favorite Japanese foods. Having lived in Japan for the past 10 plus years, I'm going to put that knowledge to use. And today we're going to talk about the best foods that you can get in Japan. We're gonna go over some bar foods, some normal cuisine, and also some fine dining cuisine that you might only find in Kyoto. So strap in and let's start talking about some amazing Japanese foods. For number 10 on the top 10 list, we're gonna go over yakitori. Yakitori is pretty basic Japanese. Yaki meaning to grill or to cook, and tori meaning bird. So basically cooked bird. Okay, so what does that really mean? So it's basically chicken grilled on skewers. And it's not like just thighs or chicken leg or chicken breast. You're gonna have a lot of different things that you can pick and choose from, and also put in some delicious vegetables. So of course you're gonna get the breast, the thighs, but you're also gonna get some skin, some liver, some delicious things you might not want to think about, but taste great and are super healthy. Now, number 9, we're gonna get into the household kitchens all across Japan, but mostly in Okinawa for one of my favorite Japanese foods, Goya Chanpuru. Goya Chanpuru, what does that mean? So Goya is like a bitter melon. I'm sure a lot of you might have had it in the States or wherever you live, but it's not really such a big food item. Whereas in Japan, and especially Okinawa, it's used quite a lot. So it's a stir fry, and the name means Goya, meaning bitter melon, as well as Chanpuru, which is sort of an Indonesian, Malaysian word meaning to mix. And what it's mixing is delicious. So we have the Goya, which is the bitter melon, and we've got some egg, we've got some tofu, and then we either have Spam or thinly sliced pork. So the interesting thing about the Spam, it's a really classic, at this point, Okinawan food. And the reason for that is because in the Second World War, wherever the American GIs went, so did Spam. So you know about how in Hawaii, lots of people eat Spam. There's actually like Spam onigiri, Spam sushi. It's pretty normal in Japan as well as Hawaii to have Spam in your food. And that's why we have Spam in the classic Goya Chanpuru. Number 8 on today's list is Dashi Maki Tamago. Dashi Maki Tamago is an amazing food. So the number one thing is, it's egg. And egg is delicious. So everything on this list so far has been yakitori is chicken. Chicken is, pretty closely related to eggs, but not quite the same thing. The second thing, Goya Chanpuru, egg is a huge part of that. And the third thing now is dashi maki tamago. Dashi is a Japanese stock. So usually it's built from like bonito or some kind of fish, and it's delicious. Dashi is going to be used on a lot of Japanese food, but for dashi maki tamago, we're using dashi and then tamago meaning egg, and then maku meaning to like wrap. So basically the way that you make it, you put some dashi in, you get your egg, and then you're going to be flipping it over and over and over and over until you get just this delicious roll. So I've seen a lot of places where people say, no, you gotta have the dashi maki tamago. It's gotta be like cold and a little sweet. That is 100% far away from the truth that I live in. You wanna have piping hot. You're gonna be so hungry when you eat this that you're kind of like fighting against yourself. You're like, I really wanna eat this piping hot food. I just don't wanna get my mouth burned. Next, for number 7, this is the first item on the list that is not really, an accompaniment with beer. This is gonna be your onigiri. So onigiri is like a beautiful triangle of goodness. Well, it's mostly made of rice, but what's inside of it? It could be an ume or umeboshi, which would be like a pickled plum, which, it's real sour. And I gotta say, the first time I had umeboshi, my face just went puckered up, and I have to have the special sweet hachimitsu version, which is like a honey in the umeboshi, or else I just can't eat it. There's some other katsuobushi, kombu, tarako, mentaiko. These are just different kind of flavors that you can have in it, but usually it's like a salmon or some other kind of fish or a seaweed. A lot of foreigners, when they come to Japan, they basically just live off onigiri. They go to like the Family Mart or the Lawson or the 7-Eleven, which are all convenience stores, and you can get like 100 yen, which is like $1. Basically, just get tons of different flavors of onigiri, and you have them breakfast, lunch, dinner until you get so sick of onigiri you never want to have them again. 10 years ago at this point, that was probably me. I was in high school, so you know, it's cheap. You can get tons of onigiri and they're delicious. You will get sick of them very fast, and the convenience store ones are not anywhere near as good as the ones that you will have if you have someone that's good at onigiri making them for you. And that is the best, or you can make them yourself. And if you do end up making them yourself, I would recommend also making the fish that you put in them, because that's just gonna be an amazing flavor. Number 6 on the list, this is TKG, Tamago Kake Gohan. What it means is put the egg on the rice. This is gonna be a staple morning breakfast meal for a lot of people in Japan. The real key here is the 3 main ingredients. So you're gonna have your rice. This is gonna be 99% of the time just, you know, pure white rice. Although you can definitely have like a wild rice or, you know, different kinds of brown rice. Those are also going to be amazing, but in Japan, mostly going to be white rice. Then the egg. So there are like special TKG eggs that you can purchase in Japan that it'll say, this is going to be amazing for TKG. And the reason for that is because some eggs are better when they're cooked and some eggs are better when they are raw. And I don't know the science, but you will know there's a difference in the flavor. And then the third part is the soy sauce that we use, or the shoyu. This is 100% going to be different depending on your flavor palette that lives inside of your mouth. But the special TKG or to be used with TKG soy sauce that you can get is going to be like a little bit sweeter than the normal soy sauce, and it's going to make a world of a difference. For number 5, we're going to go heavy deep into Japanese cuisine. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Pike eel soup, or in Japanese, Nagori Hamo no shirumono. So this is not really a food that you're gonna find normally in Japan. You will need to go to a special kaiseki ryori, or like seated table course meal in Kyoto if you want to have this kind of meal. Or, you know, you can probably get it in Tokyo as well, but it's not going to be on anyone's normal menu. The amazing thing about this is eel is, you know, delicious, and everyone knows about eel, but the pike eel is a lot different from the conger eel that a lot of people have in their normal sushi eating. This is like a pure white eel. It's extremely delicate. It's gonna be deboned. I believe that you can only have this eel maybe in August. It's just like, it's quintessential Japanese Kyoto food. You have to be there at the right time. Japan is all about seasons. In this season, you can have this. In that season, you can have that. Living in America, it's kind of easy to forget about seasons because you can have whatever food you want, whatever fruits you want any time of the year. In Japan, people are super into seasons. We're in August, we eat this. So the pike eel or hamo is an amazing food that you can have either sashimi style, or you can have it in tempura, which is amazing, or you can have it in this amazing soup. And the cool thing about the soup is you're not just gonna have it there's an entire presentation surrounding it. So you have the hamo in the soup, and it's in like a teapot. And you're also going to have some sudachi, which is a little green, sort of like a lime citrus. And, you know, you pour it over, and then the whole meal is this luxurious, kind of like drinking tea, but it's a soup. You just have to see it. It's really difficult to explain, but the warm feeling, the strength that you get from the hamo is just like, it's part of sort of a tradition. Number 4. Continuing with our tradition of Japanese in or special food, we're gonna go over Namafu Dengaku now. So this is the food that a lot of Japanese people might not even know exists. So Namafu Dengaku. What is Namafu and what is Dengaku? Alright, so Namafu is a traditional Japanese delicacy based on highly refined wheat gluten that is combined with short-grained mochi rice flour and then steamed. It's kind of like a little bit of a bread, but also with some mochi. It's got a delightful flavor. Namafu is really a delicacy that I would recommend a lot of people having. And then we're gonna put dengaku on it. The dengaku part of the namafu is like a delicious miso topping that you're gonna have on top of the namafu dengaku. The thing that you want to imagine is a beautiful like pillow. Delicious. It's not tofu at all. So it's a little bit like mochi with some miso on top. a bit of a smoky flavor because they do put a little bit of heat on it. And this is the kind of food that you're going to be having with your Japanese sake, or nihonshu as they say in Japan, meaning Japanese sake. Next, number 3. And now we're getting into the real heavy hitters of Japanese food that you might have heard before. So number 3 is going to be Tonkotsu Ramen. I'm sure you've heard of ramen. There's many different kinds of flavors. You've got miso ramen, you've got salt or shio ramen, you have shoyu ramen, which is a soy sauce based ramen, and then the most delicious, the king of all ramen, and really the only ramen that I would eat almost any day of the year in Japan is tonkotsu ramen. So what is tonkotsu and what is ramen? Tonkotsu literally meaning pork bone, and then ramen, which is originally, I believe, from Chinese, meaning to pull, raw, and then men is like noodles. Pulled noodles, pork bone. So ramen bunka, or ramen culture in Japan, is actually quite an interesting thing. The first and most important thing is going to be the broth that is created by the ramen shop that you are at. And that's going to take at least 8 hours of soaking the pork bones in a broth, and it just gives you a delicious and really, really thick, beautiful flavor, really rich umami. Next is the second most important part, which is choosing how hard you want your ramen noodles to be. This isn't really a thing that I've seen outside of Japan, but basically you tell the people how hard or how firm you want the ramen noodles to be, meaning you could be barikata or yayakata or yawamen, or there are many different kinds of hardness or firmness that you could have your ramen noodles. I am a yayakata kind of guy. Barikata means like hard as nails. Yayakata is like a little bit firm. Yawamen would mean soft noodles. When thinking about having ramen outside of Japan, I would say mostly in the US or Europe, it's gonna be the yawamen. They don't really go for really hard noodles as they do in Japan. And for me personally, yayakata is just way better than having it a little bit soft. Really having the soup and the firmness of noodles all to your preference it's a luxury and something that you should really get invested in doing if you're going to be having ramen in Japan. A little backstory about tonkotsu ramen. Tonkotsu ramen is originally from Fukuoka, which is from Kyushu. However, if you actually go to Fukuoka, they're going to tell you, no, it's not tonkotsu ramen, it's called Hakata ramen, which is like a place inside of Fukuoka. So there's kind of like there's a bit of an origin story there. The most important part of eating the tonkotsu ramen is to drink the soup, to eat, drink the soup, to eat again. You have to be tasting the soup while you're eating it, or else you're not going to get the amazing flavors. Next, for number 2, I gotta hit you with the sushi. So everyone knows sushi. It's a huge part of Japanese cuisine inside of Japan, especially outside of Japan. And the interesting thing is, I would say that for the most part, Japanese sushi is better than anything that they have outside of Japan for the most part. However, outside of Japan, they get a little creative, and you can have some phenomenal sushi outside of Japan that is kind of off the wall and nothing like what you would expect sushi would be like. I gotta hand it to the people that make the spicy mayo rolls. Like they got names like hanabi, meaning firecrackers. They've got some like special dragon designs. Those kind of sushi are really delicious if they have their fundamentals down. The most important part of sushi is the shari, which is kind of like the sushi rice, creates the sushi ball. And the second part, of course, is, the fish itself. As long as they have those two parts done, they can get as exciting as they want. The embellishments, whatever they're gonna put on the rice. I know a lot of Japanese people, they go overseas, they go to like some crazy Japanese food place, and they're like, what in the world is this kind of sushi? I've never heard of putting spicy mayonnaise on your sushi. Are you crazy? What are you doing with this tempura? And stacking weird things, and they've got like strange designs, but it's exciting, it's interesting, you're not gonna forget the beautiful and funny flavors that they have in American sushi. Jesus. And if they have the sushi rice and the fish down, you can do whatever you want. Now, in Japan, you know, they have a real classic and a flavor that you can trust. There are many places in the world where I've had sushi before and I've just been like, this is disgusting. But you don't really have that experience in Japan. Usually in Japan, you're gonna pay $1 and then there'll be 2 little sushis and it'll be on like a single layer plate. So in Japan, ikan nikan is how you count the individual little sushis, and then the plates are icho nicho. So you can ask your sushi place, how many kans are there in one cho? And it's usually gonna be like, 1 cho is 2 kan. And you're gonna pay for 100 yen for 1 cho, which is gonna have 2 kan, okay? Now that we have that out of the way, inside of sushi, so my number 1 sushi is gonna be hamachi, which is yellowtail. Number 2 for me is gonna be akami maguro. And if we're gonna get down the maguro, you know, hierarchy, there are so many different types of maguro, which is tuna. You've got the otoro, the chutoro, the akami, normal toro. Of course, you have the really cheap maguro, which they just call maguro. It's all extremely delicious. It's got totally different flavors. And depending on your preferences, you're gonna like different places. It's way less expensive outside of Japan than it is in Japan. So when you do come to Japan, I would recommend just having them all. Get a little otoro, get a little chutoro, get some akami, get some normal maguro. People have different preferences and you should try them all. Other than that, sea bream is delicious. There isn't just one kind of Japanese style sushi. You're gonna have your maki sushi, gunkan maki, your nigiri, chirashi sushi, nare sushi, temaki, temari, oshizushi, sasa sushi. There's many different kind of sushis. I would say top 3, we're gonna have nigiri at number 1. Then we're gonna have probably chirashi sushi because it's easy to make at home. Chirashi sushi is just like you've got some shari, which is the delicious sushi rice, and then you're gonna put tons of like fish on top of it, and that's all you gotta do. There's not like a whole rolling process. It's very easy to just make at home. And then my third one is gonna be oshizushi, which is like a very, very old school traditional style of making sushi, where you actually press down on the sushi itself and you just leave it there for a while, and then you take away the presser, you cut a little bit, and then you've got your delicious sushi. Those are gonna be my top 3, but you know, it's a whole world. Just talking about sushi, we could go on for hours. Finally, at the number 1 place is gonna be sashimi. So a lot of people don't know the difference between what sashimi is and what sushi is. Sushi has the rice, sashimi is just the fish. Why would sushi be 2 and sashimi be 1? Might be a question that you have. Presentation is obviously a huge part of making food, and sushi can have some beautiful presentations, especially with the American sort of dragons and, you know, all the cool things that they make in America. In Japan, it's usually not as exciting. However, for sashimi, there are kind of no lengths that Japanese people cannot go to make a beautiful sashimi meal. A brief Google search of sashimi presentation is gonna get you a lot of pretty nice, pretty beautiful sashimi presentations. However, there is kind of, you know, a hierarchy. Sometimes they're gonna bring out a full-on boat, and on the boat, there's gonna be like different levels of fish. When you present the food on the table, there's like a special way that you have to look at it. So the person, the waiter that's gonna put down the sashimi, they're gonna know that this is the way that we're gonna put it to the customer, so they don't see the backside, because it's like the front and then the back. And the back side is not facing the customer and the front side is, and the front side has a boat and it's got maybe like a fish off to the side, or maybe it's got like a little star shape. Half of the fun part of sashimi is not even the fish, it's the amazing presentation. I would say that any trip to a Japanese izakaya or nice restaurant has to include sashimi, because it is just like the heart of the Japanese food cuisine experience to me. So that's my top 10 list. Next time you head off to a Japanese restaurant, please try a few items on the list and let me know how you think about them in the comments, and I hope you have a great meal. All right, until next time, goodbye. And as we say in Kyoto, okini.